morning, everyone, and welcome to Need for Greed number 2, where we play Battle of Wits. Now, I'm trying to iterate on FLXEX's list, and I love it. And I can tell that it's finely tuned, and it does a couple of things very well. Or somewhat consistently, at least as far as Battle of Wits consistency is concerned. But there's one thing about it I know I don't like. And out of this entire list, there's one card. There's one playset of cards that I have to remove because it's driving me nuts to look at. And I'm sure that even the way that it's built right now might even be considered optimal. But I was looking through his old lists, or their old lists. I don't know if they're male or female or, identify otherwise. But there's one spell in this list that is driving me absolutely nutty, and that's Remand. Remand is the only spell in this entire list that is an absolutely atrocious top deck. Everything else has some sort of it does something when you cast it. Remand is the only reactive spell in this list. So after going through a bunch of the old lists, in this slot or next to this slot, they played Coiling Oracle. So I'm going to play Coiling Oracle instead. And that's going to resolve a bunch of my anxiety about this list. Now, I'm going to be making larger changes, and I might play other variations of Battle of Wits just in between, because I've got some fun ones laying around that I want to rebuild that are almost certainly worse than this in terms of tournament viability, but the beatdown factor if you win with it is just so good. So good. So, with that adjustment, I'm going to take this into a competitive league, and we're going to see what happens. If anything new, but I had to resolve that. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and take this into a competitive constructed league. And I will see you all in round 1. Alrighty. Need for Greed number 2, round 1, Battle of Wits. Let's go. Alright, I would like to play first. We will reveal Yorion, of course. I think of all the companions, I actually think I like Yorion's design the most. Mainly because I would like to see more deck size matters. And I understand it's not practical, but I would like to see more deck size matters mechanics in Magic. Alright. I will keep this. This is a turn... it's a turn 3 Gifts Ungiven, really. So, let's see. Play Misty. Do we play Elvish Reclaimer, or do we play Utopia Sprawl? We play Utopia Sprawl, I'm pretty sure. So what we're going to do, we're going to crack Misty Rainforest. We're going to get a basic forest and not a snow-covered forest, as one viewer pointed out to me during the first Need for Greed. We are playing into the north, which means, we're going to name blue, we need to save our snow basics for into the north. At least until we get the snow-tapped duels. Okay, opponent plays a Monastery Swift Spear, and it would appear that they are a Luris Death Shadow list. Opponent attacks us for 2, we go down to 17. We untap, they draw a card. We draw Polluted Delta. Okay, that makes the choice this turn a little bit easier. So what we're going to do is play Elvish Reclaimer, play a Marsh Flats, and pass the turn. So I don't think we have a silver... Oh, I meant to put Terastodon in this list as well. But it's not the end of the world if I don't have it. Okay, opponent plays a Swamp. Okay, they do have a Fatal Push. So we are going to Path to save ourselves some life here. Actually, I could Path myself. 4 mana and 5 mana are the same, though, so we'll just use Path on our opponent's creature to save 1 life here. We need to get a basic Plains, because we don't want to shock ourselves. We don't have a basic Plains, we have a snow-covered Plains. Okay, well in that case, we'll get a snow-covered Plains. And, Path a Swift Spear. Save a little bit of life. Now, if I was to get Iona, I think I would have to name Black. For the reanimation target, anyway. I could get Prime Time. Maybe that would do something. That might actually be kind of cool, just reanimate Primeval Titan, because we do have Field of the Dead. So, play Polluted Delta, pass the turn. Sorry, I just did that again. I need to stop cracking my knuckles on camera. I need to at least mute when I do that. I got a bunch of bad habits I'm working on. Alright, opponent Inquisitions. They see gifts. That's fine. They can't take anything. Iona definitely feels like it would be a stronger play here, though. Opponent Thought Seizes us. So we just fetch with blue to Delta. We get a basic island. Gifts Ungiven targeting our opponent. I think we Iona on black. That lets my opponent Lightning Bolt and like cast Swift Spears and stuff, but Elish Norn can prevent my opponent from having like Swift Spear and Luris, but it doesn't stop their bigger creatures. I mean, Primeval Titan would be safe because we could get like a whole bunch of tokens. I think I'm going to try Primeval Titan. Once again, I am not used to playing a list like this. So, the only reason I worry is because if my opponent does have a bunch of bolts left in hand, we're probably dead anyway. Primeval Titan does block pretty effectively. So we get Prime Time and Unburial Rites. This will let us follow up with some Panglacial Worms, and we're holding Field of the Dead, so it'll be a whole bunch of tokens. Okay, just those two cards. So opponent Thought Seizes us, can't take anything. We can't turn on Field of the Dead next turn, unfortunately. But we can gain a little bit of life. Opponent then Lava Darts us. Looks like they're trying to just do as much damage as they can. They hit us for 4, we go to 8. They only have 1 card left in their hand, so we untap. We draw Wooded Foothills. So play Field of the Dead. On Burial Rites, Primeval Titan. Okay. So we will use Primeval Titan's ability. We need to get Radiant Fountain. I don't think we have another way to gain life. I could Vesuva it, but that seems a little bit excessive. I could get Scavenger Grounds here as well. I think I'm better off just getting a Triome and starting to make sure that I have access to a lot of different colors of mana and such. I could take Grove of the Burn Willows. Help my opponent gain some life, or a Blast Zone maybe. This is the only problem with playing a Battle of Wits list that I didn't build, is I don't always remember everything that's in it. I'm just going to get a Ketria Triome, I think. Gain some life. Pass the turn. Well, I mean, next turn we can attack with Primeval Titan. Get like a Field of the Dead and, I don't know, something else. I'm going to block. I don't really have a reason not to block. My opponent can probably kill Primeval Titan, but then they're using all of their burn on Titan and not on us. And they're still going to lose their creature by attacking. They probably have to sack a land of Lava Dart here and put Luris in their hand for turn. That's exactly what's happening. The only way that really went wrong is if their last card in hand was like a Temur Battle Rage. Okay, we get it into the north. So this turn, I can put Yorion into hand and then play Yorion. So we can play Wooded Foothills, get a zombie, crack Wooded Foothills, get a snow-covered mountain. We don't have a regular mountain, and I don't want to fetch the other forest right now. Put Yorion into hand, then play Yorion. I think it was definitely correct to block that Swift Spear just because my opponent had so much burn. Okay, we're not going to flicker. Pass the turn. Next turn... Oh, you know what? I should have probably actually shocked that Stomping Ground, because if I had kept that Wooded Foothills, I could cast Panglacial Worm next turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I could still do it next turn off of Into the North. So my opponent replays Swift Spear and Knight's Whisper. Okay, they lose 2 life. They go down to 16. They play a Blood Crypt tapped. We untap. We draw Dryad. Now is not the time for Dryad, I think. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana. So, what you have to do if you want to cast Panglacial Worm is you have to float all of your mana prior to casting a spell, and I don't know if you need to hold priority. I don't think so, but I'm going to. So go ahead and cast Into the North. Okay. Then as Into the North is resolving, we click Panglacial Worm and put a Snow-Covered Forest into play. Yep. Go to combat. Attack for 6. Now we have a 9/5 with Trample. Just pretty much a must-answer threat, I imagine. Opponent is playing Abbot. They get a Bloodstained Mire off the top. The last card in hand's got to be pretty good if they want to live. And it's not. Sweet. Alright, so versus Death Shadow. Do we actually have anything for Death Shadow? I suppose we could play Knight of Autumn as just like a random life gain dude. Scavenging Ooze actually seems like it might be kind of important, so I can bring Scavenging Ooze in. Magus of the Moon just dies to every piece of removal they have, and I don't think I want to, like, go that route. I'm just going to try bringing in the Singleton Scavenging Ooze. Alrighty. Game 2. Opponent will be on the play. They have sided into 61 cards, bold, but we also sided into 241 cards, which I think is bolder, leaving me the victor. Alright, let's reveal Yorion, as always. Let's see what we're dealing with. So we got some ramp spells, we got Bring to Light, and we have Madcap Experiment. And I think this hand is actually worth keeping. So our first Into the North needs to find a white source, unless we draw one. And our second Into the North needs to find a red source. And I say we need to get the white source first because we need to have access to path basically as soon as possible to prevent as much damage as we can. But this seems like actually a really, really good Battle of Wits hand. And depending on whether or not we draw lands to make land drops, Bring to Light might actually just get Scape Shift and kill our opponent. Okay, opponent starts Soulscar Mage. They did mulligan down to 6, which is good news for us. We draw Misty. So, play Misty. The first thing we're going to do is get Raugrin Triome. Okay, opponent cracks Bloodstained Mire. And if we're fetching Raugrin Triome, we have a new plan for the End of the North, and I think the first one is going to go get a Snow Swamp. Second Soulscar Mage, okay. Opponent goes to combat. The only way I would path here is if I'm going to prevent more than 3 damage with the path. Okay, that is not the case, so we just take the 1. Fetch. Get the Raugrin Triome. Untap. We draw Blast Zone. Now, I like Blast Zone a lot, though it is going to kind of take us off of our original plan. So, we need to get the Snow Swamp. Next turn, we have access to Path and Into the North, or Blast Zone, depending on what our opponent plays. Get the Snow Swamp. Pass the turn. I really hope my opponent is not playing Blood Moon. I don't think they are. Usually this deck doesn't, but it is possible. At which point, we're just going to Madcap Experiment, and hopefully our opponent doesn't draw black mana for like a Kolaghan's Command or something. Okay, the Inquisition, so they can take a ramp spell, or they can take Path. Next turn, we're guaranteed a Madcap. Bring to Light can actually go and get a Madcap as well. One of the things I actually love about this deck list. Opponent takes Path. They then attack us for 4. Okay, we draw Ketcheria Triome. And I think we gotta go with the Madcap Experiment. We will not be able to pay 2 life next turn, so we cannot cast a full Bring to Light. Unless my opponent answers the Platinum Empyrean. Okay, pass the turn. The one bad thing about playing Platinum Empyrean here is my opponent does have 2 Soulscar Mages, meaning that any damage they do is going to be left as -1/-1 counters on the Platinum Empyrean. So they can just stack Burn to kill him, but as long as they can't kill him, we're not blocking with him, and we're not going to put any risk into this Platinum Empyrean. Our opponent would need 3 bolts, or like 2 bolts and a Lava Dart. They sack Sunbaked Canyon to draw. Okay. They could also have Kolaghan's Command, of course, which would be the most efficient answer to Platinum Empyrean, I believe. Opponent plays a Sunbaked Canyon, so they do have 3 mana. Alright, Kolaghan's Command. They're making us discard, and they do have a way to destroy Platinum Empyrean. Okay. So we're going to discard Ketcheria Triome, because that way we can still cast Bring to Light next turn. Let's see. So we can do white, green, blue, black. Or red, green, blue, black. We can get a 4 mana spell, meaning we can go get the other Platinum Empyrean. I could cast Gifts, but that's too slow. I think I actually have to Bring to Light for the other Madcap Experiment. Unfortunately, we don't have 5 colors. If we had 5 colors, I could play... Would I play anything on 5? Maybe not. Okay, well, we're just going to try the second Madcap and see if that works. Green, blue... red, black, colorless. Bring to light. I could put Omnath into play. Omnath, in theory, might be easier to cast than... or might be a little more resilient unless my opponent has a Fatal Push or multiple bolts. The only problem is it doesn't do anything to help keep us alive right now. Yeah, I think we gotta go Madcap. Almost clicked no. How terrifying. So Madcap again. Next turn we can play Field and Into the North, getting us up to 7 different lands. We could also just crack Blast Zone as well. Or not as well, but separately if we wanted to, just to answer the Soulscar Mages. My opponent only has 2 cards in hand, so they've got to have some pretty good answers here. Second Kolaghan's Command would, of course, be very punishing. It's not unlikely that my opponent has it, either. Opponent sacks Sunbaked Canyon, so they don't have it. They play a Bloodstained Mire. Opponent cracks Bloodstained Mire. Terminate Dreadbore. Really, even 2 bolts would be pretty bad for us. Okay, opponent plays an Abbot of Carol Keep. Exile K command, so you can't play it. Exile a mountain. Okay. So we get to untap. Let's see what we draw. Mystic Sanctuary. We only have 2 islands. So I can play Field of the Dead. I can Into the North for an island. Actually, I can Into the North for an island, then play Mystic Sanctuary and put Bring to Light on top. Then next turn play Field of the Dead and Escape Shift. Okay, hang on. That gives my opponent 1 turn to be able to answer Empyrean. Let me think about this. Yeah, because we only have 2 islands. So if I Into the North, I can put Bring to Light on top. We'll have 7 lands, or 8 lands next turn, so we can just get Valakut, 6 mountains. And that would kill our opponent. The question is, with 3 cards in hand, what is the odds that we die? If my opponent has... they have a Kolaghan's Command, it's like guaranteed that we die. Is there a way we can leave up Blast Zone this turn? There is, actually. If we play Into the North, getting an island, and we play Mystic Sanctuary, we have 4 mana untapped, as long as we don't tap Blast Zone. Perfect. I like this. So the first thing we're going to do is attack. We want to get any sort of... If we can block, or if our opponent blocks and can like just eliminate 1 threat for us, that's fine. They do. Okay. That does increase our chances of survival. We don't have a snow island currently on the battlefield, so we should be able to fetch one up with Into the North. So Into the North, getting a snow-covered island. Mystic Sanctuary, coming in untapped. Putting Bring to Light on top of our deck. Pass the turn. Alright, opponent untaps. So they have to have removal for Platinum Empyrean, and then they have to be able to kill us without using Soulscar Mage or a Swift Spear. Because we can just sack Blast Zone, and that would put us down to 7 lands next turn, which we can still use to get a single Valakut and then 6 mountains. And that should kill our opponent. Because that's 18 damage. Alright, opponent clings to dust, path to exile. Sure. They must have... Oh no, they could have had that in hand. I was going to say they must have top-decked that, but they were tapped out when we did the whole Mystic Sanctuary shenanigans. Okay, opponent goes to combat. Does nothing. Alright. Then it would appear we have the victory. Go to main. Oh, you know what? I shouldn't have played that Field of the Dead, because if my opponent had like a Midnight Charm or some sort of instant speed discard here, I actually would have been completely screwed. Because we could have won on 6 lands, I should not have given my opponent a trigger to respond to, but thankfully it didn't matter. Alright, 4 different colors of mana. Cast Bring to Light. So Bring to Light, cast Scape Shift. Sack all of our lands, because we don't need the Field of the Dead tokens anyway. Let's just try 1 Valakut. This is going to take a while. I should have mentioned. Alright, then let's get a few Stomping Grounds here. Moto lags very hard when you're doing tutors like this, because the netcode synchronizing it with the server tends to choke and die. And the only reason I'm doing one Valakut instead of two Valakuts is I want to make sure that I don't accidentally misclick and not grab enough mountains or something like that. Okay. Get a Sacred Foundry. Get a Blood Crypt. And then we'll get 2 Steam Vents. This is one reason why I don't like Moto's clock feature, is because you're kind of at a disadvantage when you play Battle of Wits. Even if I had a more powerful computer, I'd still run into this problem. Because it's not the local processing that's the issue, it's having to communicate with the server what your choice was. Alright, shoot our opponent a whole bunch. Oh my god, Moto. Please, Moto, please. Okay. Yes. You know what? We're going to say always yes and always yield. And I think we got him. Woo! 1 down. I am growing stronger. Cool. Well, I'll see you guys in round 2. Alrighty, round 2. Here we go. I would like to play first, yes. Reveal Yorion. Well, it's a Battle of Wits hand, and the backup is Primeval Titan, but we're not getting there quickly, that's for sure. We will keep. We'll go ahead and start in Datha Triome. Pass the turn. Let's see what we're up against. Okay, opponent starts Seachrome Coast into a Giver of Runes, so it is some sort of Death and Taxes list. I would really like to draw a ramp spell. I mean, I guess Valakut counts. Question mark. Play Botanical Sanctum, pass the turn, leave up the all-important blue mana. Make our opponent really do a big think about it. As long as our opponent doesn't have a lot of mana disruption for us, in theory, we'll be alright. They attack us for 1, sure. We go down to 19. Then they pass. We draw Breeding Pool. So, play Field of the Dead. Pass the turn. Next turn we can play a Steam Vents tapped. And then we'll follow up with a Forest and cast Battle of Wits, I guess. Opponent peeks. They know! Oh no, they know. Well, the good news is, we have 2 spells, both of which need to be answered. Opponent plays a Plains into a second Giver of Runes, sure. They attack for 1. We take 1, go down to 18, untap, we draw Field of Ruin, so play Steam Vents tapped, put Yorion in our hand, pass the turn, opponent untaps, they play a Moorland Haunt, so they probably have, like Spell Quellers in their deck, I imagine. This looks like some kind of Spirit list. We draw a Search for Tomorrow. Well, we came here to do one thing and one thing only, so we're going to do it. Play Battle of Wits. Force of Negation Hardcast. Alright. Sad face. And I would have gotten away with it, too. Because apparently we're playing against the world's slowest clock at the moment. Alright, opponent plays Hollow Fountain tapped, okay. They go to combat, they attack for 2, that's fine. We untap. We draw Marsh Flats. Play Field of Ruin, and, play Primetime. They don't have Cryptic. Mana Leak. Drat. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. So we're going to save Marsh Flats to cast Panglacial Worm. Opponent attacks us for 2. We take 2 and go to 12. Untap. We draw an Elvish Reclaimer. So play Yorion. Okay, Yorion resolves. Play Valakut. Get a zombie. Play Reclaimer. Pass the turn. We are on the board. Alright, opponent untaps. The third Giver of Runes. Path to Exile on Yorion, sure. We'll get a Snow-Covered Forest. Get a zombie. Opponent passes. We untap. We draw Serum Visions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So we're going to start with a Serum Visions. Because potentially, like, we could just draw Escape Shift and that would win us the... Alright, we don't particularly care about either of those spells, and we're going to shuffle them away anyway. So play Marsh Flats. Get a zombie. Maintain priority. Crack Marsh Flats. Search our library. Cast Panglacial Worm. and get a Raugrin Triome. Make a zombie. Get a 9/5 with trample. And the game is over. Meme Worm Dream Team. Let's go. That was like the world's slowest Battle of Wits Hand, but it was enough. I love it. Yeah, I don't really think we make any adjustments. I think we just ship it back as is. So our opponent is playing a deck that is playing Spirits, Giver of Runes, and like counter spells, I guess. I don't think they're an 80 card deck, so they're not a Yorion deck. They got Path. They could just be like a Stoneblade control style of deck, I suppose. Alrighty. Reveal Yorion. Webcam. Webcam, I need you to cooperate with me. Alright. Yeah, we're gonna keep. At the bare minimum here, we have a Renin 6, which might matter. Opponent plays a Giver of Runes. We untap and draw Sacred Foundry, so play Verdant Catacombs, crack Verdant Catacombs, get a basic Forest, play Birds, pass the turn. Next turn, we'll probably shock Sacred Foundry and cast Renin 6. Okay, opponent plays Stoneforge Mystic. So this is a kind of Stoneblade. They get a Sword of Fire and Ice. No attacks by the Giver of Runes. We untap. We draw an Elvish Reclaimer. Alright. Play Reclaimer. Sacred Foundry untapped. Play Renin 6. Opponent Force of Negations, pitching Spell Queller. Alright, pass the turn. Well, we're going to need some good top decks then. Because my opponent is putting a Sword of Fire and Ice into play. Alright, my opponent passes. We untap. We draw Flooded Strand. So, play Flooded Strand, right? Yeah, play Flooded Strand. Pass the turn. Opponent puts the Sword of Fire and Ice into play. Oh no, they have a Batterskull. Okay. That's a problem. At least by most people's definition. Opponent plays a Flooded Strand, so their hand is still Sword of Fire and Ice, 2 unknowns. And those 2 unknowns are most likely non-lands, because my opponent did miss a land drop last turn. They attack with Batterskull, no blocks. They crack Flooded Strand. They get a Hollowed Fountain. Untapped. They play Meddling Mage. Okay. There's nothing we can really do about that at the moment. And another Giver. I don't think we have a board wipe. Not one that'll work anyway. So, crack Flooded Strand. We will get a Ketria Triome. Activate Reclaimer. Sack Sacred... No, we can sack the Forest. I could get Blast Zone. Unfortunately, I don't have really good targets for that. We have a single Flagstones, right? Yeah. Alright, get a Flagstones. Untap. We draw Soccer Tribe Elder. Play Soccer Tribe Elder. Play Scavenger Grounds. Pass the turn. So the idea here is we're going to try and get Field of the Dead. At least as quickly as we can. We're almost to being able to, like, Valakut, but I don't think that's going to matter. So my opponent puts Sword of Fire and Ice into play. And they suit up the Germ token with it. They go to combat. They attack for 6. They are going to give the token pro-green. Okay. So then we sack Flagstones. Go and get a Raugrin Triome. Get a Field of the Dead, I think, right? Yeah, we get a Field of the Dead. Can't block. Opponent hits us with sword, shoots down the birds. That's fine-ish. We have nothing worth Mystic Sanctuarying, so we're going to Soccer Tribe Elder, get a mountain. Untap. We draw Hour of Promise. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can go get Valakut and a mountain off of Hour of Promise. I could just get a whole bunch of lands, or a whole bunch of Field of the Deads as well. I can't stop my opponent, I don't think, from killing us. I could get Radiant Fountain Vesuva. That would let me gain enough life. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could get Valakut and a Mountain to kill a Giver of Runes, but I have to play a Mountain first to do that. We're going to have 7 mana. I can, after the fact, Hour of Promise... I can, after the Hour of the Promise, activate Elvish Reclaimer. So if I get Valakut and a Mountain off of Hour of Promise, I could then play Blood Crypt and have Elvish Reclaimer. We would get tokens. Okay. I think that works. Oh no, it's 5 other mountains. I would have to play a mountain first. Okay, hang on. If that's the case, I think we play Hour of Promise first. We need to get 2 lands with different names. If I could just get 2 Valakut triggers to kill both Giver of Runes, that would work perfect. I could get Crumbling Vestige as a refund on mana. Could get Vesuva. So what do we get here? Telaria West doesn't work for anything. So let's get Valakut. Valakut and a Mountain gets me to 5 mountains. Then I can play Blood Crypt, recycle a land, and I think that works. So let's get a Savai Triome. Get some tokens. Play Blood Crypt untapped. Valakut trigger kill Giver. And my opponent can actually beat us here, if they understand what's going on and how to beat it. They have to give their other Giver protection. Oh, even if they do, we can just get another Mountain immediately, and that will be fine. We will use Valakut's ability. Then we upcycle a Scavenger Grounds into another mountain of some kind. Probably a Stomping Ground. We would not pay 2 life. Kill the other Giver. Okay. Pass the turn. And we should be safe at least for a turn unless they can get Maul of the Skyclaves and give the Germ token flying. That would be the only thing. So my opponent goes to combat, attacks us for 6. We could triple block here. Is there any reason to not triple block? I don't think so. I think forcing my opponent to pick up Batterskull and redo it is the way to go. Get them to spend as much of their mana as possible, because we kind of have a token engine going on now. Okay. Opponent equips Meddling Mage, plays a land untapped so they can pick up Batterskull. We untap. We draw Dryad. Ooh boy, Dryad really helps here. So play Dryad. Then we can upcycle Mountain into a Valakut, which will give us double Valakut trigger. So we can kill Meddling Mage, get a field token. Then we can play Polluted Delta, shoot Stoneforge and our opponent, get a token. Go to combat, attack for 2. Then we can play another Hallowed Fountain for even more damage. I think we just turned this loss into a win. That's absurd. We're not going to pay 2 life. Just get another token and shoot our opponent for 6. We're not going to save targets, and we can finally put Yorion in our hand. Pass the turn, we can leave up the fetch land for an instant speed double lightning bolt. So if my opponent picks up Batterskull on our end step, they replay it next turn, we could kill it. They don't pick up Batterskull. And the game is over because we can recycle a land into a 3rd Valakut and then fetch. Oh man, that was awesome! Oh, that was so cool! I love this deck. This deck is sweet. Alright, well I'll see you guys in round 3. Alrighty, round 3, here we go. Taking breaks in between rounds here, mostly to alleviate my headache, but alright. No lands. This would be a great hand with like 1 or 2 lands in it, unfortunately. We have to mulligan. I believe I can work with this. We can Prismatic Vista for a white source, and then play Botanical Sanctum and Sakura Tribe Elder, I guess. We're going to put back... I think I put back Valakut here. As much as that would allow me to cast Lightning Bolt, I want to have 3 untapped lands for the most part, and I need white for Teferi. I could start Valakut into Sakura Tribe Elder, getting white mana, I guess. That would let me Teferi as well as have Bolt. And then I could put back like a Forest, but I think having that Forest is going to be important. It's either we put back Valakut or we put back Prismatic Vista. I'm going to try keeping... I'm going to put back the Valakut. And my logic behind this is, if I need to Prismatic Vista for a Mountain and Lightning Bolt, I can. Then I can play Botanical Sanctum, Soccer Tribe Elder, and get white mana, then play Teferi. That is my current line of thought. This also lets us slightly obscure what we're doing here. Arid Mesa can get us white mana if we fetch like a Sacred Foundry. So we'll start Arid Mesa, pass the turn. Opponent started Flooded Strand, no companions, into a Hollowed Fountain. Okay. I'm not really familiar with a deck that would start Hollowed Fountain other than like Spirits or... Alright, yep. It's Spirits. And our opponent starts Shacklegeist. I am going to Lightning Bolt this. So we're going to fetch up a... I think basic Mountain is fine here. And Bolt Shacklegeist. Untap. We draw Noble Hierarch. So play Botanical Sanctum. Play Soccer Tribe Elder. Pass the turn. So our opponent untaps. They play a Seachrome Coast. And they pass. I'm not going to crack Steve here. I'm going to wait. Okay, we draw another Steve. So, with this knowledge, I'm not going to play Teferi this turn because they're hardcore threatening Spell Queller. Instead, I think what I'm going to do is play Noble and see if I can't get them to either Queller the Noble or... maybe we just attack with Soccer Tribe Elder, actually. We could play Noble first for the Exalted trigger, but I think just attacking is fine here. It accomplishes basically the same thing. If we can shut off our opponent doing things at instant speed and put like an unsummon on the board in the form of Teferi, that could be good as well. But the risk of getting Teferi countered here is too high. Okay. So opponent does nothing. Play a Forest. Play Soccer Tribe Elder. Alright. So they had it. And they're willing to counter an Elder. Play Noble. So we did miss out on a damage there. But I think my opponent would have just quellered the Noble, and we wouldn't have gotten in any damage at that point. Okay, opponent plays a Snow-Covered Island. Into a Skyclave Apparition. Exiling Noble. Sure. Opponent goes to combat. They attack us for 2, I guess. Okay. We untap. Still not cracking Soccer Tribe Elder. We draw a Path. Path here is good. Play Prismatic Vista. Fetch up a Plains. Because if we can force Spirits to have to play at sorcery speed, their deck gets a lot worse. So get the Snow-Covered Plains. Play Teferi. Opponent flashes in a Spectral Sailor. Okay, that way means they can kill Teferi basically no matter what. So we're still going to unsummon Spell Queller here. We draw an Hour of Promise. That's good because Hour of Promise is a card that they can't Spell Queller. Then we pass. Unfortunately, our opponent will be able to kill Teferi. So we chump here. Sack Soccer Tribe Elder. Get an island. Teferi down. They play a Seachrome Coast. We untap. We draw an Uro. Okay. So I guess we're going to Hour of Promise. They can't Spell Queller this. They'd need something else. So we are going to get, in this matchup, we need to get a Field of the Dead, and do we have any other utility lands that are going to be good in this matchup? I think we need to get like a Zagoth Triome just to have access to black. So I'm going to do that. Get some tokens. Opponent flashes in Spell Queller. No value. So then we pass. Soccer Tribe Elder is probably just going to be another landfall trigger on Field of the Dead. Opponent plays a Horizon Canopy, sacks it to draw a card immediately. They go to combat, they attack for 3 in the air. That's fine. So we have blue, blue, green, green. If I can draw a blue or a green and sack Soccer Tribe Elder for a blue or a green, we can play Uro and then escape Uro, and that'd be sweet. So I'm going to get I think a snow-covered island here. I think it's more likely we draw a green source. Get a token. Untap. We draw Simic Growth Chamber. Alright. Go to combat. Attack for 6. We hit our opponent for 6. Go to our second main phase. Blue, green, colorless. Play Uro. So if our opponent spell quellers this, we have Path. So they exile Uro, Path Spell Queller, and the game's over. Nice! We could actually play Uro that turn too out of the grave because of Simic Growth Chamber. We could pick up one of our other sources and then use it to cast him again. That worked out very well for us. So I think versus my opponent's deck, I kind of want Anger and Hour. And really, that's about it. So run it back. Reveal Yorion. Okay. No target for Utopia Sprawl, but otherwise this is a good hand. We do have access to a Rampant Growth, which we could use to get a forest to put Utopia Sprawl onto. We draw Growth Spiral, which is also good. Start Raugrin Triome, pass the turn. Opponent fetches up a Hollowed Fountain tapped. They play Cavern, naming Spirit, and they play a Shacklegeist immediately. We untap, we draw Botanical Sanctum. So play Botanical Sanctum, Rampant Growth, get a basic forest, pass the turn. Unfortunately, this other Botanical Sanctum will enter tapped, but I don't think that's too big of a deal. Opponent plays Selfless Spirit and a Mausoleum Wanderer. They attack for 2. We untap. We draw a Zagoth Triome. So what can we do here? If we play Teferi, he's just going to die. That might be okay. If we play Teferi, we have to like unsummon Shacklegeist, I think. Alternatively, we can Growth Spiral and Path. That might actually be what we want to do here. So tap Botanical Sanctum for green, Utopia Sprawl on the forest, name blue, play Field so we can play around Mausoleum Wanderer activation, Growth Spiral, put Triome into play, and we will pass. We're going to try and path something this turn. And it's going to be a Drogskull Captain. Our opponent will sack Mausoleum Wanderer here, but that does save us 3 damage at the very least, and prevents our opponent from getting a land. Okay, we can't pay 2. Opponent attacks us for 6. We take 6. We untap, draw Windswept Teeth. So green, blue, white. Play Teferi. Bounce Drogskull Captain. We get Elish Norn. Hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we can Windswept Teeth, get a white source, and land an Elish Norn next turn. Oh, please, just replay your Drogskull Captain. What could go wrong? What could go wrong, opponent? Yes! Alright, yeah, you put 1 on Teferi, you show him who's boss. Hit me in the face for 3. Do it. No, you're gonna leave Teferi? Oh, okay. Alright, they kill Teferi. Oh, man, and they are about to be eternally sad forever. So on the end step, fetch with Windswept Teeth. We're gonna get a Savai Triome. Okay. Untap. We draw Marsh Flats. So let's see. White, colorless, white, green, blue, black, green, Elish Norn. The old hardcast the gifts target. You're not allowed to have creatures until you can answer an onboard Elish Norn. I think that gets you. I don't, unless you have Path. And if you have exactly path, then I might be in trouble, in fact. But if you don't, you're going to be in trouble. Game over. We are 3-0, undefeated, with Battle of Wits right now. I think we got a little lucky that game, but you know, I'll take it. That's the competitive advantage of playing Battle of Wits. I will see you all in round 4. Alright, and welcome to round 4. We are on the draw for game 1. So start by revealing Yorian. This is a turn to Teferi Time Raveler, which I can get very, very much behind. So we are going to keep this. We could play an Elvish Reclaimer, but I don't think that would be prudent. My opponent is playing a Celestial Colonnade deck. So start by Shock Breeding Pool. This could be like classic control, at which point, if my opponent plays like a Search for Iskanta and we Teferi it, it's going to be game over. Temple Garden tapped, huh? We draw Soccer Tribe Elder. So Bloodstain Mire. Fetch with Bloodstain Mire. Let's get a Snow-Covered Mountain. Red, blue, white. Play Teferi. Teferi resolves. Uptick Teferi. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. Plays an island. Plays their own Teferi Time Raveler. Unsummons Noble Hierarch. We untap. Draw Summoner's Pact, which we will not be casting anytime soon. So, Lightning Bolt Teferi. Just so that problem's out of the way. Play Talaria West. Replay Hierarch. And uptick Teferi. Pass the turn. I will downtick Teferi next turn if given the opportunity. Opponent, Sorcery Speed Vendilion Click. Okay. They get to look at our hand. They can put back Prime Time if they want. They don't put anything back. And they miss a land drop. We untap. We draw an Into the North. Bounce Vendilion Click. Get a Dryad. Play Steve. Play Into the North. Get a Forest. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They Vendilion Click again. They might click themselves just trying to hit a land. At which point we will get to resolve a Primeval Titan. And that feels pretty good. They put back Force of Negation because we have a Teferi. Excellent. Alright, on our opponent's end step, sack Soccer Tribe Elder. Get a Swamp. Untap. We draw Verdant Catacombs. I like it. Uptick Teferi so it can survive a hit from Vendilion Click. And we're going to go ahead and cast a Primeval Titan. So resolve Prime Time. And we're going to get a... I could have played Verdant Catacombs out first and gotten 2 Fields of the Dead. But I don't think that is what we need. I could actually play... I could do the Crumbling Vestige... Vesuva Crumbling Vestige. Get 2 mana. Play out Verdant. Get Dryad onto the battlefield, but without a way to force Prime Time to attack. It's not like it's an instant kill this turn, so that's pretty much unnecessary. We can get... I think we just go for the Field of the Dead play here. Get Field of the Dead and probably a Ketria Triome, I think, would be good here. Get some zombies. Play Verdant. Get a zombie. And opponent scoops up under the crushing weight of a Primeval Titan. That was really awesome. What are you going to do against Teferi when you have Force of Negation? I almost want... I think this might be a Magus of the Moon opponent. Or like Fulminator Mage. Bring in Fulminator Mage, Bloodbraid, and Magus. Try like this. Alright, game 2. We are on the draw. Reveal Yorian. I mean, this just looks like the hard ramp hand. So, we're going to keep... We could go for Magus of the Moon here, depending on how greedy our opponent's start is. Or we could just draw Magus of the Moon. So in that case, we'll play Windswept Heath and pass. I think we are going to try for the Magus play. Our backup plan is Field of the Dead. So, opponent fetches up a basic island. Alright. Our plan looks less good. Oh no! They know. They know our secrets. So they're gonna play super hard around Magus, which means we probably don't even need to cast Magus. Because if our opponent knows it's coming, then probably we don't have to worry about it. Alright, opponent plays a Flooded Strand and passes. I'm going to go get a Raugrin Triome. Actually, no, I'm going to go get a Ketria Triome. We untap. We draw. Celestial Colonnade. Not really what we want to draw here, but play Flagstones. Cast Rampant Growth. Get a basic forest. Oh, I should have gotten the regular forest, not the snow-covered. That was my mistake. Pass to our opponent. Opponent fetches with Flooded Strand. They get a basic island. They peek again. Yeah, if we could draw any other like big ramp spell, we'd be in a really good spot, I think. Opponent plays a Plains and passes. We untap. We draw Omnath, Locus of Mana. There's a good chance if I actually play out Magus that my opponent is just going to let that resolve. Red, white, green. We could play Colonnade blue and leave up, or try and like Eladamri's Call or Eladamri's Call on my opponent's end step. I think this is the play. Opponent Vendilion clicks. They click us, so cat's out of the bag. They know what's happening. Opponent puts back Eladamri's Call. We draw Noble. Alright, pass to our opponent. They play a forest. So they're going to have a counter for Omnath, and they're going to start beating down with Vendilion Click. Okay. So we untap. We untap. We draw. Renin 6. Yeah, I think we go for the Renin 6 play, and we play out Flooded Strand to play around Mana Leak. So green-red, play Renin 6. Opponent hard casts Force of Negation. Okay. I think we keep the fetch land on the board because we do have an Omnath in hand, and that's what we're going to try and resolve. If my opponent doesn't have a Mana Leak or a Remand, Omnath is going to be crazy good. Otherwise, Omnath is not going to be that great. Okay, we untap. We draw a Gifts Ungiven. So, try for Omnath here. Opponent has Spell Queller. Okay. So we play Field of the Dead. We can fetch up a Breeding Pool. It gives me access to 2 islands, which is not quite enough for Mystic Sanctuary. If I shock and play Noble, and I draw an untapped land, I can Gifts Ungiven and Unburial Rites in the same turn. Otherwise, I could Gifts Ungiven for hopefully a pile of removal and then have something to cast to get Omnath back. So, we are going to fetch and shock a Breeding Pool to play Noble Hierarch. Unless... no, there's nothing else we can do to take less damage here. So, Breeding Pool untapped. Play Noble. Pass the turn. Our opponent does not know about Gifts Ungiven. They untap. They attack us for 5. Let me actually check the deck list for this. Because I know we have Bolt, I know we have Path. Do we have any other removal in this deck that we could gifts for? I don't think we do, actually. Opponent plays a Stoneforge Mystic. If we draw an untapped land... if we draw an untapped land, we can get, like, Elesh Norn. We drew Platinum Empyrean. And unfortunately, we cannot play Platinum Empyrean. Alright, hang on. So if I Gifts Ungiven, as a way to get back Omnath, I could get Lightning Bolt, Path to Exile, 3 mana to Fairy, and like an Uro. So blue, colorless, single green, white, Gifts Ungiven. So we want... this is the one bad thing about playing the full list of optimum spells, is we can't always wish for exactly the thing we need with gifts if we have an excessive amount of mana. So 3 mana to Fairy. That's spell number 1. Spell number 2 is Lightning Bolt. Spell number 3... We might still just be dead. No, I think the landfall trigger off of Omnath will gain us enough life that we'll still be in the game. We get Path, and is Uro our best 4th spell? I think so, because it's good whether or not it goes to hand or grave. We don't have any Snapcasters, so we can't buy any of this back. I mean, our 4th spell could also be Scapeshift, which would just kill our opponent instantly if it resolved next turn. So if they give us any one of these 3 spells in Scapeshift, we theoretically have a turn and then could kill them. Do we have any artifact removal? It's not like we have any raids or anything like that. I did bring in Night of Autumn, I think. Did I not? I did not. Okay. So yeah, I'm just going to get Scapeshift as well, instead of Uro. Uro might have been better here, but I think these are the 4 spells we get. Opponent can now make their decisions. I think Teferi is the worst way they could give us to answer Spell Queller, because it potentially gives them more Spell Queller value. We're pretty close to hard casting a Platinum Empyrean, which we haven't seen anything out of our opponent that would answer that yet. And if we draw a fetch land, we can do even more crazy shenanigans. I think the worst thing our opponent could do would be to give us a Lightning Bolt or a Path here. Okay, they gave us Path. So I think what we do is use Path. I could still draw an untapped land off of Omnath's Enter the Battlefield trigger, which would then let me cast Teferi as well. So I think we're going to go for the high upside play here, because we're playing Battle of Wits. Okay, Spell Queller lets Omnath enter the battlefield. Cast Omnath. Draw me a fetch land, please. Omnath draws Botanical Sanctum, which is also a tap land, no matter what. So we can't play anything else this turn, but we do play a land to gain some life. I think in this case, we play Botanical Sanctum. We get a zombie, and we gain some life. Pass the turn. Unfortunately, our opponent will be able to hit us with a Sword of Feast and Famine, forcing us to discard probably Magus of the Moon, because they have mono basics. Yeah, I should have gotten Uro. Getting Scapeshift was greedy. Getting Uro means that we had another way to gain a bunch of life and potentially stay in the game here. So opponent equips the sword to Stoneforge. They play Jace. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, we still only have 2 islands. If I had a 3rd island, Mystic Sanctuary would be lethal next turn. Because we can Mystic Sanctuary, putting Scapeshift on top of the deck, play Teferi, bounce something and draw it, and then Scapeshift for lethal. So that was actually a slight mistake. And by slight, I mean probably very costly. So my opponent brainstorms. If we can kill Jace this turn, we can cast a Platinum Empyrean, and then they have to answer that to do any more damage to us. Plus, we could play a land and gain life before landing the Empyrean, just as a little bit more of an insulating barrier here. The problem is, if my opponent attacks, we literally cannot block Stoneforge. So them untapping all their lands would be pretty good. They hit us for 6 because we can't block. We have to discard, so we discard Magus. They untap all their lands. I'd really like them to tap out for something else here. Okay. We untap. We draw another Gifts. I think we start with Mystic Sanctuary tapped and then attack. And we try and kill Jace. I think that's what we do here. So Mystic Sanctuary tapped. Gain some life. Get a token. We go up to 7. Go to combat. Attack Jace. Exalted trigger. Our opponent has to have no removal for this. Okay, Jace down. Play Platinum Empyrean. Mana leak. Okay, well, we are at 1 life total over our opponent's current damage maximum. They just failed to find off of a Prismatic Vista and shuffled away their other cards. So this is all the basics they have. 5 mana, they play a Batter Skull. Go to combat, hit us for 6. So we take the damage, we have to discard, and I think it's got to be Teferi. I think we're casting gifts here. A single unsummon is not going to be enough. 3 mana, our opponent plays Teferi. They unsummon a token. I think they're trying to draw a counterspell here. So they have like another Force of Negation. We're in trouble. We currently have 9 mana. So we draw Indatha Triome. Okay, go to main. Cast Gifts. And we get Scapeshift, Bring to Light, Mystic Sanctuary, Serum Visions. I think that does it. Let me double check how many untapped lands I have, because that may not actually do it. I might have to get something else. Hang on a minute. We have 5 untapped mana, red, white, green, blue. Okay. So Scapeshift, Bring to Light, Mystic Sanctuary, and then I think just a Serum Visions will do it. And no matter what, we have the ability to cast Escape Shift. So Bring to Light, Escape Shift, Serum Visions, Mystic Sanctuary. Okay? Opponent gets to choose what we put away and what we keep. Okay, our opponent gives us Bring to Light, Serum Visions. So cast Bring to Light. Red, white, green, blue, green. And if they have a counterspell, they've got us. Okay. Well, they got us. We can't pay for that. Unfortunately, if I had a fetch land, I could. Because I could go up to 5 life and add a bunch of colors of mana, but I just didn't have it. So we'll go to game 3. I am actually going to restart the client now, so be right back. Alright, and we have undone our sideboard by doing this. Do we have anything else that would be good versus this Stoneblade control? Maybe an Hour of Devastation, though that is unlikely to resolve. I'm going to bring in a Knight of Autumn. We'll try it like this. Alright, I would like to play first. Reveal Yorion. Gonna have to play a little bit quick. This is a very high risk, high reward hand. So let's do it. We really need to draw a land. But we have birds, which should hopefully let us play Coiling Oracle. Coiling Oracle looking a lot better than Remand would right here, right now. Play birds. Pass the turn. My opponent shouldn't have an onboard answer to the Mana Dork because they're not playing red unless they path us, and that's actually fine. Okay, we draw Coiling Oracle, so blue, green, play Coiling Oracle. Okay, we put a land into play, and it's a red land, pass. So that's good news. Opponent cracks Flooded Strand. They find a Breeding Pool tapped. They untap. They play a Flooded Strand, and they pass. We fetch a Raugrin Triome on their end step. Okay. Untap. Draw Knight of Autumn. Go to combat. Attack for 1. Opponent takes 1. Play Coiling Oracle. Coiling Oracle resolves. Get a Marsh Flats. Top decking like a god. Pass the turn. Opponent cracks Flooded Strand on her end step. I have to manage my clock very well this game. They get an island. And they flash in an Ice Fang Quaddle, which I am going to Lightning Bolt. Then I am going to fetch a Indatha Triome, actually a Zagoth Triome, and pass. Because now I can F6. That was not necessarily an ideal play. It would have been better to save the Lightning Bolt for something else, potentially. Well, we draw another one. Go to combat. Attack for 2. Opponent takes 2. So we're going to play out a Knight of Autumn, adding 2 1/1 counters to the Knight, because we're just going to try and go full beatdown if we can. Opponent flashes in a Spell Queller, exiling Knight. We did top deck Lightning Bolt, though, so we still end up getting the Knight. Cast the Knight. Put on the 1/1 counters. Pass the turn. Opponent plays a Stoneforge Mystic. Okay. Getting a Batterskull. We untap. We draw Teferi. White, blue, blue. Play Teferi. Still top decking like a god. Opponent has a Mystical Dispute. Nothing we can do about that. We cannot pay for it. Go to combat. We attack for 4. Opponent's going to take it and go to 9. Pass the turn. Opponent cycles a Censor and passes. We untap. We draw Prismatic Vista. So my opponent can put a Batterskull into play. What do we do here? Go to combat. Attack with a Knight. Opponent just takes it. Cast Summoner's Pact. Opponent may be intimidated enough to counter this and then delay putting Batterskull into play. Okay. They force exiling Censor. So we cast Summoner's Pact. We get Omnath. Blue, white, green, red. Play Omnath. Opponent has a Censor, which we did not play around because of Prismatic Vista. Plays Prismatic Vista. Pass the turn. That is unfortunate. But our opponent did not put a Batterskull into play that turn, which is good news for us. We have to pay for Summoner's Pact, though. So opponent has to pass. If we draw a path off the top, that would just be perfect. So pay for Summoner's Pact. We draw Radiant Fountain. Play Radiant Fountain. Gain life. We're going to pass. Unfortunately, we have to let our opponent put a Batterskull into play. Okay, so they have a Batterskull now, which is very bad news for us. They attack for 4, and I'm not really willing to trade at this point, so we're going to take 4. Opponent cycles another Censor, plays a Colonnade tapped, so that's all 4 Censors in their deck. We untap, draw Breeding Pool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Play Dryad. Play Breeding Pool tapped. Put Yorion in our hand. Pass the turn. Well, if we're lucky, we can get a slow flicker on Night of Autumn to kill Batterskull. It's just not super likely. I will chump with the Coiling Oracle, just so we don't take too much life damage here. Opponent plays a Hollowed Fountain untapped. Plays a second Stoneforge Mystic, still leaving up mana to activate Batterskull. And do a Sword of Feast and Famine. So we untap. We draw an Omnath. Red, green, white, blue. Play Omnath. Omnath draws us a card. Hoping for a land. It's a Teferi. Teferi here is good. So we fetch. We get a basic forest. Gain life. And then we play Teferi, blue, white, white. Opponent has Mana Leak. Alright, so we gotta let that go. Pass the turn. No attacks. Problem is, everything on our board is green, and our opponent, by playing and equipping Sword of Feast and Famine, can force us to discard Yorion now, which is pretty bad. But we could still top deck a complete Haymaker like Primeval Titan, and it would be probably game over. So we can't block at all, so this just happens. We discard Yorion, they untap all their lands. Really hate that it makes me pick when there's only one card in hand. They play Teferi Time Raveler. They might just uptick, really. Because bouncing any of our stuff is potentially very bad for them. They bounce birds. Okay. So we untap. We draw. Elvish Reclaimer. Peak. So Elvish Reclaimer is insane if it sticks around for a turn. Because we can just start fetching up Valakuts. Getting landfall triggers off Omnath to keep ourselves alive. And killing our opponent. So my opponent has 2 cards in hand. They uptick to Fairy, they play a field. They animate Colonnade, which we will chump with birds, because that life matters a lot. Okay, we discard nothing, they untap all their lands. Now the problem is we're probably going to die with when we're tutoring our library, because we don't have that much time left. Which is really unfortunate, but I'm playing on a laggy client with Battle of Wits that lags while tutoring. Okay, well, we get a breeding pool. Sack Radiant Fountain. Get Valakut. Valakut, what do we ping here, actually? I could ping the Germ token twice, but I guess that's... doesn't really help that much, does it? Because they can just pick up the Batterskull and do it again for really cheap. I guess I have to make them re-equip and do all of this. We get to gain life out of the deal. Then we get a bunch of mana, but we can't use it out of the grave. I guess we can then attack to Fairy, but not with the Dryad. My opponent can animate a Colonnade, or they can just put Batterskull back into play and trade with either of these. But if they do that, then they're not equipping Sword and beating Face with the Germ token. So I guess there's that. I think the correct choice was to not block and just let Teferi die. I think that was the correct choice. Because if we can start Elvish Reclaiming for... Elvish Reclaiming, I guess, for more Valakuts while we have this Dryad on the board, this is not a thing that particularly matters. Yeah, I think that was a mistake by the opponent, but we'll see. They do have Field of Ruin, so... Second Field of Ruin. They equip a Stoneforge Mystic with Batterskull and with Sword of Feast and Famine. They attack with 7 lifelink. We cannot block. I think at this point I would have to top deck Escape Shift or a Bring to Light, casting Escape Shift. Opponent should activate Field here, I think. Oh, they have Jace. Well, they can just unsummon the Elvish Reclaimer, and I think that's going to be it, unless we top deck a Escape Shift. They Brainstorm. Okay. They get to keep 1 card they Brainstorm for. We untap. We draw Botanical Sanctum. So, sack Forest. Get Valakut. Shooting Stoneforge Mystic twice. I just don't think I have the clock to win this, unfortunately. And then Botanical Sanctum. Shooting Stoneforge and Stoneforge. And like we're just dead to Colonnade. Let's see if our opponent panics and doesn't see it. Because that could potentially buy us another turn. Nope, they saw it. Well, it was close. We just didn't happen to draw the cards we needed in top deck mode. It was a very close match, though, and I think I made some play mistakes, but I'm going to go ahead and restart the client, and then I will see you all in round 5. Alrighty, round 5. Let's see if we get 4-1 with Battle of Wits. I would love to play first. Reveal Yorion. Oh, well, we got some mana dorks into a Madcap experiment. If we top deck a land, this will be pretty good. I think we start by fetching up a Temple Garden and play Noble Hierarch. So, Verdant Catacombs. Fetch with Verdant Catacombs. Get Temple Garden. Untapped. Play Noble Hierarch. Pass the turn. Opponent plays Scalding Tarn. Passes. We draw a Hollowed Fountain. So, go to combat. Attack for 1. Play Birds. Play Hollowed Fountain. Pass the turn. And then we can move on to a Madcap experiment. Opponent gets a Zagoth Triome. Plays an island. Passes. We untap. We draw an Arid Mesa. I guess we could go for the Hour of Promise, I suppose. Play Arid Mesa. Crack Arid Mesa. Get a Snow-Covered Mountain. Yeah, let's go for Hour of Promise. Because then we can follow this up with a Primeval Titan. Opponent has Remand. Okay. Pass the turn. Opponent plays an island and passes to us. We draw a red and 6. So... play red and 6. Opponent Archmage's Charm. We cast Eladamri's Call. And then we get... I think just another Mana Dork here. Or we could get an Elvish Reclaimer. Let's get an Elvish Reclaimer. I have a plan. Play Elvish Reclaimer. Pass the turn. Let's see what our opponent does here. They play a Breeding Pool. They cast an Uro. Uro gains them life, draws them a card. They don't put a land into play. So they push the Reclaimer. Alright, that pretty much leaves us with only Hour of Promise as an actual play this turn. Which is a little bit unfortunate. But we can get Field of the Dead and a Ketria Triome. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They can't quite replay Uro out of the grave either. We untap. We draw a Lightning Bolt. Play Primetime. We could have played Madcap to play around Mana Leak, and maybe we should have. But it was just a hard counterspell, so... Alright, pass the turn. Next turn we can Summoner's Pact for Primeval Titan. They Fatal Push another bird. Well, Noble Hierarch. They play a Wilderness Reclamation. Alright. They untap all their lands. We untap. We draw Scalding Tarn. Summoner's Pact. Opponent fact or fictions in response. You can have Nexus of Fate and fact or fiction or Growth Spiral in 2 lands. I think they take the pile of lands. They did not. Alright, so Summoner's Pact resolves. We can either get Omnath, do some landfall shenanigans into a Madcap. I actually like that. Or we can get Primeval Titan. I think we just get the Primeval Titan. Omnath is cool and all, but Primetime I think just wins harder. Play out Scalding Tarn, play Primetime. Because then we can get Field of the Dead, one other land, like a Valakut maybe. So get Valakut, get Field of the Dead. That is when I can find it. Okay. Get a bunch of zombies. Pass the turn. We could fetch and shock for a bolt. We have no basic mountains left in the deck. So my opponent does have a Nexus of Fate, so they could Nexus of Fate this turn. This might be a main phase factor fiction for land, considering they did not take the pile of lands. Alright, they play an Uro. Sure. They gain some life. They draw a card. They do not put a land into play. We have 1, 2 mountains only. Okay, they get to untap their lands. On their end step, we're going to crack for a mountain of some kind. Probably Raugrin Triome. Get some more zombies. Untap. We have to pay or we lose. Okay, we draw Celestial Colonnade. So, play Colonnade. Get more zombies. Go to combat. We will not be able to get enough mountains to turn on Valakut, unfortunately. But we can make a big attack here. Or our opponent can have Cryptic Command. That works too. So go to our second main phase and play Madcap Experiment.
leaving up red for lightning bolt. So our opponent lets that happen, and we get a Platinum Empyrean. Pass the turn. Opponent plays a Flooded Strand. So they did find a land. They do have Nexus of Fate in their hand. They crack Flooded Strand, probably for a Mystic Sanctuary. Yep, putting either Cryptic or Factor Fiction on top. It's Cryptic. Alright. They Growth Spiral. So they're probably going for a Nexus of Fate setup here. They drew Cryptic. They go to combat. They're not brave enough to attack into an 8/8. So they're going to cast Nexus of Fate here. Untapping their lands. Take an extra turn. Shuffles back in. Okay. So they untap. 4 mana for a second Reclamation. Go to combat. They can't attack because we have an 8/8. Get to untap all their lands twice. Factor Fiction. You can have remands or you can have lands. They take the lands. They Growth Spiral in a land. Clever. And they untap all their lands. And then they pass. We untap finally. Draw Utopia Sprawl. Go to combat. Opponent has a Cryptic, tapping our creatures and drawing a card. Okay. So we go to second main. Put Yorion in our hand. Cast Yorion. 1, 2, 3 mountains still. So we flicker Primeval Titan. Yeah, just Primeval Titan. Primeval Titan enters the battlefield. On our end step, opponent cracks Scalding Tarn. Getting another Mystic Sanctuary to put Cryptic on top. Looks that way. Man, it'd be really cool if this resolved and we had a Bajuka Bog somewhere in the deck. For lands that we can get tapped, do we have any that actually matter? We can get some of the sack lands. We can get a Scavenger Grounds. Let's get a Scavenger Grounds and like Misty Rainforest. Actually, let's get a Scalding Tarn. Okay, make a bunch more zombies. Pass the turn. So the only thing I would like Lightning Bolt is if my opponent plays a Jace the Mind Sculptor. I would force them to have to, you know, do something about that. Opponent plays a Misty, cracks Misty, gets an island. 4 mana, they play Tamiyo. And they're going to pass to their end step. They are attacking for 6. So they gain 3 life, they draw a card. They put Mystic Sanctuary onto the battlefield. So they can put a card on top and uptick Tamiyo to get it. Factor Fiction. Alright. Well, we just triple block with zombies. You know what? Quadra block. Just in case they have the old 1 unsummon that they feel like using. Okay, they decide that trade is fair and even. They pass to second main. Opponent upticks Tamiyo. I think they named Factor Fiction because they milled 3 cards that weren't Factor Fiction. Then they cast Factor Fiction. You can have Factor Fiction or 4 lands. Go to their end step. Opponent casts Factor Fiction. You can have Nexus of Fate or everything else. Opponent takes Nexus of Fate. Then they untap all their lands. Cast Nexus of Fate. Then they like unsummon Platinum Empyrean. We're gonna bounce Mystic Sanctuary, tap all our creatures. Sure. Actually, I'm not going to turn off auto yields. I'm going to turn off auto yields right now, because if my opponent casts something that, or if they down tick Tameo here, we would lightning bolt Tameo. Opponent puts Factor Fiction on top of their deck, pluses Tameo. Okay. Opponent Factor Fictions. Nexus of Fate versus everything else. They take Nexus of Fate. Okay, so on their end step, in response to the triggers, Lightning Bolt Quaddle. Okay. Untap all their lands. They cast Nexus. I am making them play this out because their win is not deterministic right now, and the potential for them to mess it up pretty badly exists. They can't beat us to death with Uro because Uro draws them cards, and that'll be more cards than they have left in their deck. Unless they have a way to put multiple cards back in their deck. They uptick Tameo. They get Nexus of Fate. So I'm pretty sure they can just down tick Tameo and pick up like an Ice Fang. No, they can't even pick up Ice Fang Quaddle because they have a card in their deck still. Well, they can play it now, draw it again, and then cast it on their end step. What'd they pick up this time? Another Ice Fang Quaddle? Oh, they have to. Okay, so they have to platinum. They have to bounce Platinum Empyrean so they can start doing damage. Okay, then Nexus of Fate to put it back in the deck. They untap and draw it. And I think this is now a deterministic win. It's a very slow win, though. I'll come back for the next game. I'm playing it out because there's a really good chance my opponent messes up this loop. And we actually win this. So, yeah, I'll see you guys in the next game. Alright, so they got us. I think I'm actually going to bring in Crumble to Dust in this matchup, as well as Fulminator Mage and Knight of Autumn, and Necromentia. Because if we can Necromentia Nexus of Fate, they're probably dead in the water. And yeah, let's try it like that. Alright, we'll play first. Reveal Yorion. Very close. If we had green mana, I'd say yes, but we don't. Well, it's just a turn 4 Gifts hand, so why not? Put back Prismatic Vista. We'll start Marsh Flats. Get Raugrin Triome. F6. Hopefully we draw a ramp spell on too, that'd be great. Opponent plays a Breeding Pool tapped. We untap. We draw Steam Vents. Play Verdant Catacombs. Let's get a Zagoth Triome. Pass the turn. Opponent plays an Island. We untap and draw Renin 6. So play Scalding Tarn to play around a Censor. Red. Green. Play red. Oh. Red. Green. Play Renin 6. Opponent Aether Gusts. So we fetch. Get a Ketria Triome. And put Renin 6 on the bottom, because we really don't want to recast that. Pass the turn. And the idea here is we're going to get gifts, Unburial Rites, or we're going to gifts for Unburial Rites Iona, and Iona on blue. Play an island to pass the turn. Okay. Opponent cracks Misty, gets a Zagoth Triome, flashes in a Quaddle, pass the turn. My opponent plays an island. Attacks us for 1. I should not have Scalding Tarned the turn I Scalding Tarned. I should have saved the blue fetch for Mystic Sanctuary. So I hope that doesn't come back to bite me. Okay. Let's Gifts Ungiven. Okay, opponent Cryptic Commands, counter draw. Sure, we untap. draw Serum Visions. So, play a Wooded Foothills, crack Wooded Foothills, get a Indatha Triome, Serum Visions, Dryad, and Lightning Bolt. Both of these to the bottom. And put Yorion into our hand. Pass the turn. So opponent untaps, attacks us for 1. We go down to 14. Opponent growth spirals during their main phase. Then they play a Wilderness Reclamation, so they have their mana engine online. We untap. We draw an Omnath, Locus of Creation. So blue, green. Oh, you know what? I have to do it this way. Green, red, white. Try and resolve an Omnath. Opponent Factor Fiction. You can have Aether Gust or those 4 other cards. Opponent takes Aether Gust. They Aether Gust Omnath, so we put Omnath on top. Play Steam Vents tapped. Pass the turn. Pass to our opponent's turn. They play an Uro, so they gain some life and draw a card. Putting a Misty into play. Cracking Misty for a Forest. They're going to recast Uro here. Alright. Putting an island into play. They hit us for 1, and then they're going to untap all their lands. And they play an Ice Fang. We untap and draw Omnath. Go to our main phase. Blue, red, white, green. Opponent has an Archmage's Charm, which is super unfortunate for us. Play a Steam Vents tapped. Pass the turn. Opponent growth spirals. Plays another Ice Fang Quaddle. My plan there was to play Omnath, play a fetch land, fetch for a land, get a bunch of mana, play Yorion, and flicker Omnath so we draw 2 cards at least. Opponent attacks us for 9, gets to draw an extra card. So we're going to go down to 4, and we don't really have any board wipes here, so unless we can top deck and resolve an Elesh Norn again, I really doubt we're going to do anything. We get Field of the Dead, play Field, get a blocker. Play Yorion. Not exiling any permanents. Alright, well, we can chump Uro for a turn, and we go to 1, but we don't have a Terminus in this deck to Miracle, so we're just dead, I'm pretty sure. Go to 1. We draw Farseek. I'm gonna go out on my own terms. Make a zombie. Turn myself into a zombie. But hey, we 3-2'd, and with Battle of Wits no less, we almost 4-1, which is pretty good. So let's open our treasure chest. We get 5 play points, a promo Humble Defector, and a Nantucko Shade. Yep. So, talking about the deck just slightly. Where did I put it? I'm very happy with the switch to Coiling Oracle. It worked out super great for us in one of the games. I'm not sure if we won that game or not. I don't remember. But the one where we kept like land, a single land dork Coiling Oracle worked out amazing. I definitely think switching Coiling Oracle or switching Remand for Coiling Oracle is the way to go. We definitely want proactive spells. We do not want reactive spells in this list at all. Summoner's Pact was really powerful, especially the one game where we had 2 Summoner's Pacts. That was crazy. Unburial Rightsing Primeval Titan was not a terrible way to go or a terrible thing to do. I'm thinking we really ought to get rid of a lot of the one-ofs in the sideboard, even though they're for the like Eladamri's Call package. I'm thinking we just play like Karn in the main deck. Because like we ramp hard enough that Karn can usually find a way to win out of the side. We can't play any artifacts in the main deck, and we can't side in artifacts out of the main or into the main deck because like as long as we're on the Madcap plan. But Karn himself is not an artifact, so I think that that's probably worth it. Yeah, I'm not sure of any other adjustments I'll make at this time. We'll see by the time I play another Need for Greed. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined. And remember, you can follow me on Twitch. Same username over there as you find me on here. I stream Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, though the last few have been earlier. Yeah, I want you to know that you're all wonderful human beings, and I really appreciate your support. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!